You.
That's okay. We can just chat.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
We just carry on like we've been carrying on before. Now, you tell me that you went to the University of Florida.
Yes, sir.
What was that like?
It was a great school when we went. Went from 2012 to 2016. Good basketball and football team when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I majored in mechanical engineering and my wife did nursing.
Mechanical engineering?
Yes, sir.
So you're out building bridges and things like that?
I'm not right now. I started my own business back when I was in college too. So I do rubber tile on playgrounds.
Okay.
So that's what I do for a living now.
Well, that's cool. But what was it like to go to the games back at the University of Florida?
I mean, it's a good fan base there for sure. I mean, the games were really exciting. That's a big stadium. And they're, from what I heard, they're expanding it in the next couple of years. They're trying to add a bunch more seats.
Well, can they get 100,000 people in there?
I think that's what they're going for. I want to say it was like 84,000 that it holds now, but I think they're trying to get over 100,000.
Well, I've been there several times. I don't know how they can do that. So
I'm not sure what the plans look like for them to expand it, but I was reading an article. It was about a month and a half ago. I was reading an article about all the work they're going to be putting into it.
Okay.
So those Texas stadiums and everything some of those hold well over 100,000 people.
The Texas stadium?
Yeah, some of the colleges in Texas have really big stadiums.
Well, Penn State and Michigan have the top two. Michigan being the highest, and they get over 100,000 people in there.
That's
like 106 or something like that.
That's insane to me. They probably sell out every game too.
Well, when they're winning, for sure.
Yeah, we had one of our teachers in high school here at Ridgeview, where we graduated from. He went to Michigan.
Okay.
So he's he bleeds those colors.
But being how compact that corner is there, how is it structurally possible to?
They're going to kind of knock out an entire side and bring it back a little bit and then go up a little higher. But structurally, that might be kind of difficult.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it unless they're going to build a completely new stadium.
Yeah, it just depends on the space right there, because it's pretty tight right there with the roads and everything, so I don't see them being able to go out very far.
Right. Get over here.
I was just reading on some article they put out like a month and a half ago. They were going to put a bunch of money in and revamp the stadium, and they were hoping to be able to add more seating, so I guess you'd have to look at the plans for that, how they're actually planning on making that happen.
I think all universities are trying to get to the point where they do expansion projects like that, but the big problem right now is the coach himself. A lot of people aren't happy with the Gators coach.
Yeah, I mean, they're not happy with the record and the things from the past few years, because you go from, winning all the national championships with Tebow, and then we're there, and then they've kind of fallen off quite a bit in the last few years.
Yeah, we're talking almost 20 years since Tebow left, though.
Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it? That's crazy.
But my thing is, they don't seem to give coaches much of a rope there in Gainesville.
No, sometimes you get yanked after a couple of years. It seems like, some of them come in and sign 5 to 10-year contracts that only last a couple of years. I think it's kind of like that in all big schools that are used to winning. Like, if you don't turn the program around in a couple of years, you're gone.
Okay, then, so what's a feasible amount of time? I mean, if you're signing the coach to these big dollars, I think he's making, $8 million a year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on how bad the program's doing when you come in. Like Deion and them at Colorado, they win one game last year too.
They won one game last year.
So, and then I assume they'll probably, I think they were 4-5, but I assume they'll probably win 6 games this year and might, bowl eligible. That's pretty good turnaround for 1 year.
It would be. Now, he's got his plans to try to expand the same program that he did this year with the transfer portal. He's going to do the same thing next year.
Yeah, so he's going to pick up a bunch of kids out of the portal. And I think maybe 5 years is a reasonable amount of time. But then you have to think, what do you get in 5 years? Like I said, you turn the record all the way around, then you have a couple really good seasons where you play in a decent bowl, and then you're trying to make a national championship run, at least make the playoff, and they're about to expand to 12, so it's a lot more feasible to make that playoff than the 4.
Well, my thing with him is I think he's there really for his kids. I thought that when he was at Jackson State, and now that he's got 1 year left, and Travis Hunter's got one before he can go to the pros, I don't see him staying there much longer than that.
You think he'll up and go somewhere else, or just not coach anymore?
He's got health issues, so why spend it all on the sidelines?
That's true, because he had the problems with his foot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but
I mean, he's one of those guys that's, it's kind of almost marketed his own brand like a lot of people do too. I mean, he's in the media every week. People are following him, and he's getting a lot of attention for that program. And yeah, for his son, like you're saying, I mean, his draft stock will go up just with the attention.
I will say this: that you hire a guy like Deion, it's what colleges and high schools look for when they hire former athletes. They figure they're going to have the aura based on what they did before, that the players will listen to them, and that's working in his case. He just don't have enough right now.
I think he's been a pretty good coach. We talked about that last night too at the rehearsal dinner, and I was saying that, I didn't watch him a lot because I'm a little younger, but everybody said he was real flashy and everything. But as a coach, it really seems like he's turned everything back to the players. Like, we're winning these games because they're putting in the hard work. We've got one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. You got the best two-way player in the nation for sure. One of the best in forever.
Right.
But I really it doesn't seem like he's taking a lot of credit for it. He's really turning it back and saying, they're putting in the hard work. These guys have come in and changed the program and the culture. And, the players are buying in, it seems like. I mean, 4-5 doesn't seem great, but when you were 1-10 or 1-11 last year, that's a big turnaround.
Well, if you look at it right now, it's like a good foundation for what could take place in the future.
Yeah.
But I think as the future goes on, it's going to get worse.
I don't know when you start over a program like that. In my mind, I mean, if it takes you 10 years to win a national championship, it's really not that bad if you kind of start over from scratch and build it up, and then you have, after you make it past year 5 or 6, you're there every year, competing for it. To me, that's a big turnaround for any program. But it's not like he came into a program that was already 8-4 or 9-3 and just needs to get him over the top. He's really starting over.
Because they've been struggling for the last 20 years or so. They can come out with a competitive team once every 8 or 9 years lately.
Yeah, but, back when I was, I've done a lot of indoor weight rooms for a bunch of the college football teams. And so we redid the weight room at Baylor.
Oh, yeah?
The college football weight room. And that was when they were just starting to get really good. So they were raising a lot of money because they've been really good for the past, I'd say about 10 years. They're pretty relevant.
Yeah, they've been pretty relevant. Not so much this year, though.
Yeah.
But when I started mentioning the foundation, I think that the face of college is changing because of this NIL thing. I think that, well, first of all, do you think that the players should be paid?
But I don't mind the players being paid. We had a bunch of friends that were college athletes, and you hear about, like, these guys are having to eat every meal in the meal hall, and I mean, that's paid for, but the schedules are so rigorous and everything. You can't go work a job outside of, being dedicated, especially a sport like football.
Right.
So, I mean, these guys are either having to take out loans, or a lot of them were getting paid under the table, kind of like that anyways. Everybody knows that went on forever, but I don't mind it. I mean, I like it that they're at least able to live some sort of life outside of football or have money to do things other than just, the sports that they're there for.
Now, one of the things that Deion talked about, you got some players coming out of high school now demanding to be paid X amount of money in NIL, and they're using that to consider which colleges they go to. He said he didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, it almost becomes like free agency at that point, doesn't it? Because they're gonna try to strike the best deal for themselves financially. But I mean, it's, to me, like, the NCAA made so much money off of athletes forever. It's just a business like anything else, and they make a fortune off of it. So I don't mind a lot of it going to the players now. But it could get overblown for sure. Things like that are just kind of take away from what college sports are about, I think. But if you're able to market yourself and create a brand for yourself, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to make money like everybody else.
This is Sports for Real. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I got a rideshare partner here, and we're talking sports as we go to our destination. But the reason why I brought up the NIL, because that has now trickled down to high school. A lot of states have made it possible for high school players to get NIL. So how are you going to control your teams? Just picture this. You're a high school player, and you get NIL, and you're making more money than your coach. How's that going to work in the locker room?
Yeah, that's probably not, because people are going to be too big time for that. I think they'll outgrow things like that, because professionals are making more money than their coaches now, or most of them.
Well, that's a little bit different. I mean, the college player and the pro player, they're not going to alienate their coach to the point where they get thrown off the team.
No, because they get to that next level, make a way to the pros and everything. So
because you're in a position as a high school coach to dictate what happens with that kid. If you put out the message that this kid is a headache problem, a behavior problem, then you can mess it up for him.
Yeah, I mean, he'll never get signed anywhere, you would think, if he gets tagged with that. So I definitely think it could create a lot of problems. I mean, might have to taper it back a little bit and figure out how to. I don't know if you can put restrictions on it or something, but
I think that's where the parent comes in, because you got some parent working down at the factory making $15 an hour, and all of a sudden you got a kid that's getting NIL money in high school. The parent is controlling everything now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, then hopefully, I don't know, you just hope things don't get taken advantage of in a situation like that. I mean, it'd be good for parents to get involved, and, if you put a bunch of that money in the trust, like as they go off to college and after, you can really help set them up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a high school kid at 16, 17 getting $1 million going straight to them, and, you're not financially responsible before.
Yeah, but you now cause a rift between the parent and the child.
Yeah.
If the kid's making money like that at 16, he can move out of the house.
They'll probably tell, becomes a thing where, you can't tell me what to do. I'm rich and I can just up and go wherever I want and pay for whatever I want.
So what we essentially have here is money being in a position to destroy this American society even further.
Yeah.
Because their values aren't there.
It could definitely have, a dangerous effect on things, but it's hard to figure out how to control all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so hypothetical situation, you got a kid that's getting NIL money while he's in the 10th grade. How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if my son or daughter were ever at that level and they're bringing in money, then, I take that money and make sure that it gets put in some sort of fund for them that they probably couldn't touch until they're of a certain age. I mean, you can put money in things where you set up a little trust fund for your kid and they don't get it till they're about 25,
mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. That's probably something like I would try to do,
mm-hmm.
just to make sure to protect them. And I mean, that money, if it comes in for them, should be their money, in my opinion. I'm not going to take any of it. Okay. But I'd like to set it aside in something they can't touch till they're old enough to understand the financial responsibility and things of that nature, because it could really set them up. I mean, if they can earn it that early, it could really set them up for life if you put it away and make sure that, when it's time to buy a house or things like that, if you can have access to this money for down payments and you're living your adult life, I think that could be a really good thing.
Okay. Now going back to Florida and Billy Napier.
So, I mean, it seems like every time one of these new coaches comes in, everybody's excited about the culture, and then, you start with a lot of hype, and they do just move on from him so quickly anymore if you're not putting up results. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they move on to him or move on from him to somebody else.
After 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, those schools are so big there, it just becomes one of those things where, I mean, you see some of these shocking firings in sports that you never really see coming, so you can't even be surprised anymore.
Right.
I mean, look at the Lions and some of the stuff they did, and they fired some of their coaches when they had an 8-7 year. A guy from Miami, the Dolphins, got fired a few years ago. What, they go 9-6 that year, and then let him go. I mean, you'd think you give them more chances, but like you said earlier, shorter and shorter.
They operate on a whim, kind of like what Jerry Jones does. But if you take a look at Florida State, Mike Norvell struggled for several years, but now he's got it all turned around.
Yeah, I mean, you like the programs that stick with people, and it doesn't change overnight. I don't think anybody can expect to come in. Even like Florida was they were already a 5 or 6 win program, which wasn't necessarily up to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when a coach comes into that, it's not like he's starting over like Deion was, where you're 1-9, 1-10. But
right.
You still can't expect to win a national championship within a year or two. Too many of the schools are good anyway. I mean, you got to get through the Georgias and the Alabamas, and you've got Michigan and all these teams that you have to try to get through that are already good with long tenured coaches, and their recruiting classes are at the top every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's unrealistic to think you're going to come in and win a championship in 2 or 3 years.
Right, but that transfer portal is a powerful weapon if you use it right. But
it becomes free agency. Like that's how I think a lot of people view it, because you can almost get anybody you want, especially if you can somehow offer them enough money, whether legal or not, the way they can do it. But if you can guarantee them enough money in the NIL deals and things like that, you can get them to come to your school.
Right. Now, you mentioned Michigan. What's your take on the situation with this stealing signs and posting people on sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely violated the rules as they're written. But to me, I think a lot of these teams, push the limits and even go past what you're supposed to do. And I think Michigan's probably just one of the first ones to get caught, because now that they got caught, and you read these articles that they're trying to point the finger at other people too, that the other people in the Big Ten that have been stealing their signs for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So you wonder if there's any truth to it, or they're just trying to deflect blame from themselves. But I would wager that it happens at almost all the major universities, and they probably try to keep it under wraps. I mean, they're trying to get any advantage they can get. And some of them, they really push the limits and do things that you're not supposed to do.
And that is suspend Harbaugh for the rest of the regular season, but if in the bowl game or the college playoffs, he's eligible. Also, he can coach during the week. So you tell me, what really is the point?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's there all week. The only thing you don't get to do, or maybe the in-person halftime adjustments, but they might, like you said, they might call him. They'll find a way for him to still be involved in the games.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know that it does much. We were just saying, I was talking to my dad, and some of the people said they should have just fined him. They were talking about fining him $5 million or something heavy, and that might have had more of an effect on it, because then it would hurt him personally and hit him in the in the wallet where it really matters.
Right.
Because like you said, this might just be a slap on the wrist too, since he gets to coach all week anyways. It's basically like he's there.
And this is the second time he's been suspended this year. And a lot of people, they saying, well, we should just wash our hands with Harbaugh. And it looks like if that's the case, he'd be going to the NFL. If you're Harbaugh, do you come back to college?
Well, that's what I was thinking. It's like, if you, in his situation, if you get a year-long suspension or something like that after the season, he'll probably just up and go to the NFL. Yeah. I mean, people want him coaching in the NFL, and he was there before, and I assume that's the move. If you take a year suspension, I don't think he's going to sit there and just not earn money when he has the potential to go to the NFL and make, I don't know, $10 million. Maybe he might not make that much, but.
Well, at this point, I don't even think it's about money with him. I just think he want to stick it back in somebody's eye, But I think that a lot of people want him gone. But at the same time, if you're in Michigan, who are you going to get to replace him and keep you on the level where you are? Remember, it took him a slow build to get where he is.
I think Michigan fans want him there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, they've been relevant for quite a while now, and they're always knocking on the doorstep, it seems.
Right.
To win it all. And so, of course the Michigan fans want them there.
Right.
I don't know who you get to come step into a program like you replace them. Because, I mean, your top coaches are already at big-time universities for the most part. They're long tenured in places, just like he is. But, I mean, you move on from somebody like Harbaugh, and that's a big culture shock for some of the players and everything, too. So, all of a sudden you have a big adjustment period that might take you another year or two, and some of your best players are gone after that. Either, run out of eligibility, or they're off to the NFL or whatever it might be.
Okay. Well, let's just assume he's there in the playoffs. He makes the playoffs, and he's going to run against the SEC team. Normally those Big Ten teams, up until last year when Ohio State pushed Georgia to the brink, they used to get blown out. What do you see Michigan's chances as making it to the championship game?
I think Michigan's got a good chance. I mean, they seem good offensively and defensively, which is what you have to be to compete with, any of the top teams. But I think a lot of those schools end up getting blown out by the SEC teams, because the SEC teams typically have great defenses.
Great defense.
And they can control the game like that. And their offense is pretty good, too. I mean, they might not be as high-powered as the Oklahomas and the Texas, the guys dropping 50 points a game.
Right.
But they can shut you down. They can control time of possession, which is huge. They can hold you to 17 points when you've been putting up 44 all year.
Yeah, that's a big drop, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of those teams don't have the defense to sustain it. They're winning games like 50 to 42, 47, 44.
Right.
They're winning shootouts. And once you stop them from scoring points, you know, they're going to get exposed. He's still, you know, he's got some maturing to do.
Right.
He still makes some bad decisions from what you see, but I mean, all the quarterbacks do. It's a growth thing.
Well,
That's just the consensus I see from a bunch of my buddies that are diehard Jack fans. They say like he's not an efficiency in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And they were dating all the way back to like the middle of last season, and he was number one in a bunch of stats through basically a full year's of games, like 9 this year and the last 8 from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they got a good squad. I like it. I mean, I'd like to see him make a deep run. It's good for the hometown, and I mean, I'd like to see him make a deep run. It's good for the hometown, and you know, they're building that. You know, they're building that brand. He's willing to. You know, they have to dump a bunch of money into the community and the surroundings to be able to get something like that. How much? It'd be great for the city. It'll build up the city of Jacksonville, surrounding areas around the state, make it a lot nicer. And
well, you know, if they lose that team, if they don't get this deal done, they're gonna go to London.
Yeah,
That's pretty much a done deal, as far as I'm concerned. Stay in Jacksonville, you go on to England.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if they don't want to lose them, then they definitely better get a deal done. You know, there's talks of them bringing. They don't want to lose them, then they definitely better get a deal done. You know, there's talks of them bringing the soccer team and everything else to the stadium too. When they.
Well, yeah, when they get a new stadium.
Yeah, the stadium too. When they.
Well, yeah, when they get a new stadium.
Yeah, I think there's been talks for a few years because they had they had one of those World Cup qualifiers a few years ago, and it sold out.
Yeah.
I mean, all those seats that used to be covered up, and you remember all the games that used to get blacked out when the Jags were terrible. I mean, they had that whole stadium packed with soccer fans.
Well, tomorrow they won't have that problem. The San Francisco crowd, they will. They will see the crowd.
Yeah, so I mean, that'll be a pretty good game. I think that's going to be a really good one. That'll be another good test for them because I mean, they're going to be playing one of the top